Beer family. We are on North Park Hill of neighborhood in Denver, Colorado, at a little place with a big name, Long Table Brewhouse. And they've got an even bigger heart. But this building in and of itself, it's got stories. It's been a Piggly Wiggly, a coffin manufacturer, and now it's home to a awesome small batch craft brewery. We're chatting with Nate Smith and Josh, the brewer, and they're gonna walk us through the magic that happens here in the barrel rooms and the brewery house. We're taking a tour of it. It's a 7-barrel system, and we're talking about their award-winning anniversary sour, and we're gonna dive into what makes this place more than just a neighborhood bar, and it's literally a long table with a great big open heart. There we go.
This is my buddy Nate.
That's Josh. He's the brewer here.
He's the best guy I've ever worked for.
He lives down the street.
He does.
We stole him from somebody else.
Smart.
He's ours now.
No, I'm not going anywhere.
Nate, what's your role here?
Owner operator. I've got a couple business partners, but I'm the day-to-day guy. So I'm usually here orchestrating chaos, playing on Instagram, drinking beer with Josh.
Love that. Love that.
Head brewer, manufacturer of chaos.
Yes.
Drinking beer with this guy.
Yeah. I think it's a good realm to get in. Like, what does long table mean to you? Where does that come from, metaphorically, literally? How did you come up with that?
So Chris, one of my business partners, his mom collects people like on Thanksgiving, right? Like so there's the dining room table. I think they've been released. People like, oh, you don't have anywhere to go. You're from out of town. You're not going home for Thanksgiving. And by the time we opened spring of 18, it was kind of a, the idea that it's better to like gather around a place with others, right? So much more metaphorical than a literal. Although these tables,
they are longer.
And they're a touch longer, and you can line them up
And make a really
long like pirate ship style table. Every once in a while we'll do that in here.
Okay. What's the vibe like around the North Park Hill neighborhood? Then obviously you collected a brewer out of the deal, so that's pretty good. Does that long table, you're welcome to the table, those open doors, does that really just beam from the doors? I kind of felt that walking in for sure the first time we came in.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That's the idea. A place for any and everybody, especially in the neighborhood. We have world-class wontons across the street, so we see tourists and people coming from all over the city. It's great if you come from all over the city. We'll gladly have a beer with you. But really, we want people to walk up. And so bikes and dogs, although they have to stay on the patio now, kids and strollers, they'll drink one day. We'll be here. And we'll get them.
We limit them to one.
Yeah, we'll get them on their 21st for sure. There's a couple kids that we've seen the baby shower, the first birthday, and
the second birthday.
Yeah, so we at least have 15
precedent.
years more to go before I get a 21st birthday of a kid that had his first year. So
what about the local artists coming through? Obviously, there's a lot of really great art on the wall. Is that something that you put out right away? You wanted to get them in? Did they approach you? Is that just part of the vibe?
It took us a while, maybe a year, before we got art on the wall.
I love it, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, this is one of our neighbors. The beer's named after him, the Fairfax Cowboy, the IPA. He took all these portraits, I think, in Eastern Europe, maybe between like 10 and 15 years ago.
Okay.
He lived over there for a long time. And he had, like I said, all these portraits that he wanted to check out. But yeah, some people approach us. This photographer up here, a lot of landscapes and stuff.
Sure.
We've got a woodworker here in the back that they made our flight boards. Kind of anybody that shows up, or if we see you at a coffee shop, take a little picture, your contact.
Sure.
If you
come through.
If you want to have a say, if you want to have an impact, you just got to show up.
Yeah, that's what they
We're
say.
pretty open.
First rule to life is to show up. That's what they say.
So most people who have their art on the walls, they showed up.
I mean,
awesome.
you guys were one of the first breweries that got the award-winning book in.
Yep.
It felt very welcoming, and we were very excited that you guys were pumped about the book. So
We
it
love
works.
beer.
I can imagine how
Yeah,
all the artists
doing it.
felt coming in because we.
So it's totally like a change from what this building has been. I want to pop into the history a little bit. It's been a Piggly Wiggly, a coffin manufacturer. We're talking right at World War II, this building was constructed. Give us a little bit of the history of the building.
So there was I think a record building fire in the 50s. So I think if you go to the records, I think they're all dated in this area, 1951 or whatever. The first grocer was an O&O. It was two brothers, maybe Olson, last name, something like that. But yeah, then through the war into the 50s, Piggly Wiggly. This wall outside, rumor has it, if you sandblast it down, there's a big Piggly Wiggly. Yeah, the exterior of this wall.
Cool.
You know, like their big advert, right? Yeah, after that, there's a lot of time lost. When we came upon the property, it was for sale. It was the other side, the main tap room was a gelato shop.
Okay.
And then this room was being used for like kids' clothes, knickknacks, like local, kind of like, I remember like wooden Colorado state flag type vibes.
Okay.
Love that.
Yeah.
Interesting. I was wondering with the almost puppeteering window you have back here.
Let's talk about the beer more, right? If it is perspective, if it's a matter of perspective, it is about gathering together and talking about life around a glass of beer, or geeking out about the recipes and the histories behind it, or the business behind it, and how you really scored an awesome timing at this place, which is great because the whole area is very different than it used to be. You have some really great beers over here. We've got 5 on it, 1 bronze at GABF for a barrel-aged sour.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Was it yours? Was it your vision?
Talk to
Made
us
this
about
happen?
the beer. Like,
The beer's really neat. I was, okay, so I guess I started making my first sour beers in the basement of the Wind Coop, 14 years ago. I was working with this really incredible gentleman named Andy Brown, and basically it was like a no holds barred environment. We brewed all the styles, we made all the things, we did all the stuff. And I had this opportunity to work with Bier de Garde, and we made a beer that we aged on
The rest of it too.
grapes. And Peter brought this fungus in, this botrytis fungus from Chile, where he had been visiting. And so we made this sour beer, aged it on these grapes, added this random fungus, pulled it out of the fermenter. I remember shoveling, hundreds of pounds of grapes out of the basement, out of these open fermenters. And then we lost a bunch of beer, whatever. It ended up being this like really neat experience where you kind of realize that if you're clean and you pay attention and you follow the process, you can make really tasty, interesting stuff. And so when I helped open another brewery a few years later, when I helped open Wonderland, we started a sour program there as well. And just got into this idea. I've always really liked Flanders Reds and Oud Bruins as styles of beer. I think they're tart, they can be fruity, they have malt, they pair well with sunshine and my wife. And so I've kind of leaned in, in America, we don't really have a lot of structure around how we make sour beer. You pretty much do it however you want to do it. But it's nice to look back into Belgium and France and kind of think about their process and their tradition. And for being such a small brewery where we don't have fooders and I don't have tanks that I can sit on for 18 months, it's possible here to age beer inside of a wooden cask or a wooden barrel and get some really neat things out of it if you give it enough time. So the way this one was made, we brought in 400 pounds of grapes from California. It's a blend of Cab Sauv, Sangiovese, and Cab Franc. And we threw those into the fermenter, stems and all, whole fruit, didn't crush it, didn't do anything with it. Knowing that it would have its own bacteria and wild yeast on the grape skin. I had a friend of mine at a laboratory prop us up some Torlaspora delbrucki, and we added that on top of the grapes, and we basically let it ferment in the tank for about 3 weeks without touching it.
3 weeks. Okay.
And then we brewed what essentially was a pale Belgian, blonde beer to go on top of the grapes that were already in the fermenter. And we let that ferment out for about a month. And then we transferred that into these Cabernet Sauvignon casks where we pitched some PDO, some lacto, some Brett, some sacro, some wild yeast and some sacro. And we let it sit for 16 months. And some of it kind of came from people telling me that you shouldn't make beers with grapes. And I was like, okay, well, A, I know you can do it, and B, I'm just going to do it again.
Yeah, please continue.
And so just, that's kind of like, honestly, I'm always a little out of the box. I like to push boundaries. But you can't forget the box is there, It's supposed to remind you of something without being too obtuse.
Chelsea and I always converse about beer and food pairings, and it often always comes back to the barrel-aged sour beer.
Sours are my favorite. That's my go-to.
This is wonderfully complex, right? And would go with a plethora of different food pairings, right? I like the sour, I like the sweet. My brain instantly goes to I want savory, I want spicy. I'm also a junkie for those things. But
Nose is incredible.
then, I actually thought the sour would linger a little longer with me, but I was pleasantly surprised that it didn't, and which is wonderful. I wanted to highlight, though, as well, about the process is it's also a real estate issue, right? You're taking up barrels down there. And so is that an artistic decision? Is that a business decision? And having faith in your brewer, your artist, and going, you know what? He probably will knock that one out of the park, because some people are hesitant to even pull the trigger on doing something like this. And it's beautiful, and thank you for doing it.
I think I
might have overcome.
I think you
We've had these conversations. These conversations were real.
you can kind of in the back of this room right now there are 6 whiskey wine casks, right?
At one point we had 10.
And that I think we're
trying to find we recognize that this is also a space.
Right. You have to have seats.
To sell the beer.
Right. So maybe one day there's a Connex or shipping container full of barrels outside, and that's probably another set of logistical concerns, right?
What is cool about these right now, one of the things that we are trying to do right now is we basically are attempting some sort of sour aged beer about every 6 months. There is kind of a long-term thought about what we're doing, when we do it, how we do it. Not only does beer pair well with food, it pairs well with particular seasons. People have expectations, whether it's stout month, which I don't have an expectation of, or pumpkin beer, which I suppose I do have an expectation of.
Only because it's coming around and one is past?
I don't know. I just can never seem to...
It always looms.
It always looms. But like on a day-to-day operation, we look out about 10 weeks. That doesn't mean we haven't already kind of figured out what we're bottling this year, what's going into barrels this year, what's going to get made, specialty beer-wise, probably through September at this point.
And I heard a lot is about seasonality and what makes sense. And you have basically the gambit on your board right now as far as draft offerings. And I love that, right? Because you're just checking all the boxes, right? But how do you, it's a nano brewery, right? So.
Well, we talk about one of the things that I think defines either my style of brewing or this brewery in general. I think we're very yeast focused. There's 13 beers on the board right now. I'm pretty positive there's either 6 or 7 yeasts. There's at least 2 lager yeasts. There's a Quebec yeast. There's an English yeast. There's a wild beer up there. There's a Cali. So I can think of 6 and I don't have to work too hard at it. Oh, and there's a Belgian. So there's probably 7 yeasts up on the board right now. So I think that adds a lot of flavor and a lot of complexity to what's on the board. It makes things really diverse. That doesn't mean we can't take care of the hazy crowd or the fruity crowd or the gluten-free crowd. The NA crowd. It just means that we also get to make like traditional German lagers, and we get to make, West Coast, IPAs. We try to touch on all the things.
I didn't ask though, are you distributing anywhere, or can people only get the beer from here?
No, we have.
There's 5 places with draft beer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything in the can, or just be a draft? You're kegging them off. Love that.
These bottles we do one at a time.
Right.
We do about somewhere between, say, 110 and 200 whenever we decide to bottle something.
Okay.
And then the goal is usually to try to sell those within about 16 months. So by all means, if you're interested in acquiring a case for your restaurant, please.
We couldn't hold the line, if you would.
Yeah.
You're going to rotate through it, which is fine.
Yeah, we're more for that, like, oh, and by the way, we have these special beers.
I love it, really.
Right.
Talk to us about some of these other ones you've got set out. You did an event last year, the year before. Go ahead.
Every year since
Every
the war
year.
started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We recently did one just a couple weeks ago.
With Ukraine, to support Ukraine.
Yeah, so locally the Ukraine Aid Fund is here in Colorado. It was started by local Ukrainians, some displaced, some citizens, right, born in Ukraine. And we have a neighbor that's come here since we opened, born in Ukraine, who's about maybe 10 years old, lived in maybe upstate New York, and then has a family here, a couple of young kids and a wife. And the 2 nights after the invasion started, I think we started texting, and within a week or two, I was just looking at it the other day, Pravda Brewery in Lviv, we had Instagram messages back and forth with them, because I saw a video, they were turning their bottles into Molotovs to throw at the threat of war, right?
There's a picture by the restrooms. If you want to see what a Molotov cocktail looks like.
Literally.
Like the real one.
Yeah.
From them.
Yeah, wild. So we reached out, offered to, brew some of their recipes, provide support back, resources back to them after we sold it. So that was spring 22. There were a couple clothing drives that year. We did one of their stouts one year in lieu of one of ours, the Yellow Top beer. And then, so last month we decided that Josh would brew a beer, a recipe that inspired him. And so the proceeds from that beer will go to this cause as well.
So that's a Maibach.
So we advertised that probably early March, and Pravda reached out and said they had beer sitting in Providence, and would we be willing to take a donation? And so they sent us a pallet of beer, various styles. There's a mango peach sour. This one's kind of the infamous one from the invasion. Putin Hulo is the translation is Putin is a dickhead.
That's a cool label, by all means.
Very cool label. We turned it into a T-shirt
Nice.
for fundraising efforts a couple of years ago. So we sold those as part of that fundraising effort that one day. And it's a good time. Live music. The Aid Fund will show up with like a bake sale and art and merch to raise money for them. And then we'll do this piece and then transfer that money back for them. And they do everything from humanitarian aid, relocation assistance,
gas,
medic
radios,
bags,
flak
armor.
jackets.
Yeah. And you can donate to them and then choose, if you don't want to buy weapons, you could donate to the humanitarian piece. Like you can select on their website how your money's used. So we're trying to put together a collab. So we're going to try to go to Lviv
Okay.
and brew some beer with these guys. hopefully this summer. Yeah.
Yeah. Realistically could happen to get over there fairly easy, or?
Yeah, I think
the idea would be like flying to Poland and drive,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like all the
Yeah.
other things that
Yeah,
get
yeah.
into Ukraine
Yeah,
these
yeah.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'd be a
Uh,
train involved. But yeah, our respective families have given us the okay. And so yeah, I don't know, maybe it's time to just
Buy tickets.
buy the tickets. and go
Yeah.
there,
Shh. Okay.
Yeah.
Is this guy a part of that as well? The
No.
thinking of
No.
you. What's the thinking of you then?
So this was a real interesting beer that we've kind of been chewing on for 7 or 8 months as an idea. It's a Bier de Garde, and Bier de Garde's this real interesting style. It's so strange it doesn't get its own category at the JBF or the World Beer Cup. It just ends up in the French ale category,
Okay.
and which makes it A, hard to find one to drink, and B, to know whether one is any good. So you have to kind of take a little bit of history and a little bit of time and place and kind of think about what it is your goal is when you make something like this. It means beer for aging. So it's about 6% alcohol. And what was real neat about it was we fermented it with pear juice and a French ale yeast. And then we dry hopped it with Citra and aged it on Brettanomyces for 9 months. No, excuse me, 3 months, 90 days. And it's just got this like wonderful, fleshy pear skin, aromatic, and it's got just a hint of like tropicalness and this like continental, Pilsner malt wheat profile that's like real pleasant. And it's real neat. So we bottle conditioned 116 bottles.
Okay.
That'll be done in about a month probably.
Okay.
But the beer's on tap now.
Okay.
And it'll be interesting to see the difference. I assume that what comes out of the bottle in about a month will be more complex. As the Brett goes back to work and the beer undergoes another fermentation. But it's delightful.
Yeah, it sounds delightful.
Back into the world of juicy, beers because people want juice.
Juice is delicious.
It is.
Yeah.
So's this.
They're full of shit about sugar, but juice is delicious.
Yeah. It's complex. Like it's a great beer.
It's got layers.
Anyway.
No, one of our colleagues, Danielle, who helped us open, is a bartender. She's a teacher. She's an art teacher in Adams District, but she does our labels.
She does all of our labels.
Aside from the Ukrainian ones, but yeah, the 5 on it, the stouts, yeah. So we call her up and say, hey, we've got this absurd beer.
Yeah,
and she says, what's the name? And then we just shrug and will help us out with that too. I think she had been in New Orleans or
recently.
something.
Yeah,
And was
I
kind
can
of,
see that that's the hoodoo.
Yeah.
and so she just took that vibe and ran with it. Josh asked if he could be in a Ferrari on the label. That's the little, it's a zombie Josh, I believe.
I know.
I can't see that well, but sure.
Yeah. He didn't deserve, I guess, the front center of the label, but it's on there. Yeah.
You at least made the label.
I was manifesting.
Yeah.
That's, I,
Oh.
Good times roll.
Okay. Did I ask what you are submitting this year?
we submitted 4 beers this year. We submitted our Belgian triple, which did really well at JBF, though not well enough to win. So we're going to try again. Also, it was bottled, and that helps my soul. We submitted the 5 on it. The beer that went into the barrels after 5 on it was a porter that we aged with blackberries called Space Cowboy. So we submitted some of that in the same category that we submitted 5 on it, basically. So we're going to see if that works. It's always hard because once you start making it a world beer competition and you're starting to play with Belgian brewers, it gets weird, right? They have different standards. We submitted our Maibach, and we bottled our sour hazy, which is a real fun beer to brew. We basically make an Imperial hazy IPA, Imperial being about 8 and change, and we ferment it on about 80 pounds or about 10 gallons of fruit puree in the fermenter. And currently it's passion fruit and mango. And it's just like tart and refreshing, and it's juicy in the way it's supposed to be. And it's
Concentrated.
yeah.
It's like
And-
brunch.
Yeah.
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 Or breakfast.
So I've been at places and gotten the feedback from different award-winning beers. Did you guys have anything that stood out that was?
A couple.
It was a couple years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago.
So we do a beer we call Brass Monkey, a la the Beastie Boys, right? And so it's a beer mosa, and it's not a beer that goes on tap. This beer is designed to cut with juice, right? It's 11% malt liquor adjacent beer, and so we submitted that, and I think the quote was, "This beer is great, and I hate it." Or something like that, right?
Yeah.
'Cause
Well, I
that's-
really want to hate this beer, but it's great.
Yeah. So it's-
But it's wonderful to drink, and it's fun, and I don't know that we'll ever submit it again, but the responses we got from that were worth it.
How do you feel about awards and award beers? Did we talk about this already?
Uh-uh.
Okay. What do they mean to this evolving beer industry? You love it, you hate it?
I always think it's great to be recognized. In some respects, it reminds me a lot of like the Oscars. You're being awarded by other people who work in the industry, who drink the beers, who care about what's happening. I think it's a very neat opportunity to get recognized for doing something well. I have no idea whether it makes any financial impact whatsoever on what we do here at the brewery, and my general gestalt is to be a little understated. I like cool things as long as
I got in a
like
book.
if you're in the know, if you're in the know, then you know.
Yeah.
And if you're not in the know, then you don't know, and I think that's cool. So we don't have the medal hanging up. It's in a box. We'll work it. We'll work it out. We'll work it
I told
out.
him to get a gold and hang up.
Yeah. See?
Third place.
Yeah,
Third
so
place.
your turn.
I
What
could
does that-
I could care less.
Yeah.
It doesn't
That
matter.
seems
No.
to be
If Josh and John, they brew a beer they're proud of, cool. Let's pay for the judging fee.
This is also beautiful. I feel like you gotta give us a little bit on this. We've got a wheat wine ale. It really does hit like a Chardonnay.
Yeah, it's got a lot of fruit notes.
Yeah.
Very kind of floral.
Buttery, I guess, or maybe Chardonnay. Just threw
Mhm.
that into my brain.
That little
Yeah.
A
A lot of honey.
lot
Third-
of honey. I love
Third
that.
use barrel,
Okay.
if I remember right.
So probably an imperial stout, followed by a barley wine, followed by this.
Yeah.
Would have been in a bourbon barrel.
Yeah.
Honey went right into the barrel. Let it sort of mix up and re-ferment. Sat in the barrel for about a year.
Went into the barrel when my daughter was born.
Yeah.
The day my
A
daughter was
Love's
born.
whiskey barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's it came out of the barrel November 22, so it's already
Okay.
2.5 years in the bottle. And it's great. It's changed.
It reminds
Yeah.
me of those
Oh.
little dried apricots.
The Turkish apricots in the,
You
in the
know,
grocery. You could just want
obviously
one.
not
We should have
like- not
brought.
the
We should have brought a
texture.
spread. Yeah. We'll do this again with
Next
food.
time. I think that's a great point, and our bad. We should have brought food. Next time. Speaking of food, do you offer any beer and food pairings? Do you highlight that with your food trucks that come in? Are they rotating? Are they regular? Is this something that the community is even into, or are we just geeking out over something that inevitably is part of our DNA?
So, multi-tiered answer to that one.
Please.
I'll let Josh discuss cheese with this beer in a second.
He knows it's coming. Nate goes out of his way to try to track down things that are not currently in the neighborhood. He goes out of his way to bring in really good trucks with good ratings and great food from other places in the city. So not only do occasionally people come down to eat here, but they get to have something that they can't get at another brewery or another location in this area, which is awesome.
Another way to stand out.
And we have, you know, like I said, I live in the neighborhood, and I have neighbors who will come down here specifically to eat at specific trucks. They're like, I know when they're in town, we plan our night around it. It's like the brewery for at least one of my neighbors, the brewery is like, and we'll drink at your brewery. But I have to tell you about this smash burger, you know?
And you're like, and let me tell you how well it goes with this.
Well, I think the demand is there. I think it's just threading that needle.
Yeah.
You know, how do you want to do something? You know, we probably put on 25 new beers a year. How do you pair those? What business model? You know, I can't go to Torchy's and be like,
Please don't.
hey, if you don't mind, could you modify your, right. You can't go to Five Guys and be like, look, I know you have bacon, but could you get salted, smoked, aged, Dubel bacon for the month? You can do it. I've had a lot of experience in the past. Back when Whole Foods used to be a little smaller, their cheese counter and their meat counter used to be like locally run. And so we used to ship our beer both out at the Wind Coop and at Wonderland to different Whole Foods restaurants, either to bake bread with or to turn into sausage or to pair in their cheese section. It's a little harder now that they are even less small.
Yeah.
I don't think they care.
But you have Lucky Bird today, right? I would push the hell out of that Maibach. You know what I mean? It's going to dilute it and amplify it at the same time. And if you're into that sort of thing, it's like a whole, and forgive me, it's like orgasmic experience in and of itself if you like beer and food that much, right? Like, again, geek about beer and food, but that's fine. It's just something to play with there. But anyway, do you have a favorite?
My favorite pairing. It's easy. I like this stout.
Yeah, sure.
I make this stout with about 50% Pilsner malt. It's really soft.
Okay.
It's not super, it's imperial, but it's not like pastry, cloying. It's not super sticky.
Yeah.
And there's this cheese made by the Somerset dairy in the UK called Wensleydale. And Wensleydale cranberry cheese paired with imperial stout, my imperial stout, is got to be one of the coolest things that has ever tickled my brain. It's like the juice and the texture of the soft cheese, and it kind of like crushes in your mouth, and then it's surrounded by like cocoa and coffee, and you're like, and caramel and sugar, and you're like, yes, and it's a little tart and a little acidic from the soft cheese, and the cranberry adds this kind of fruit note that you weren't expecting, and then you're like, let's do that again. Yeah, and the cheese isn't that expensive, and it's not that hard to find, and you're just like, oh, I need a quart of this, you know? Is that how you buy cheese, by the quart?
I guess if you
Doesn't matter, yeah. The wheel.
The wheel, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to tickle your brain. I think, like, honestly, that's what allows breweries to win medals. You know, you're sitting around, sometimes you have a beer, you know the beer's good. You're enjoying the beer, it's a fine beer. Nothing wrong with the beer, not gonna win a medal. Sometimes you have a beer and you kind of like, there's a little thing somewhere in your mind behind your eyes and it kind of vibrates a little bit and you kind of go, ooh. And you do it again and you go, ooh.
Yeah.
Those are the beers that win medals. You know, like, and when you end up at the brewery and you're drinking those beers and it does that to your brain, you're immediately like, oh, yeah, I can see why this went this direction.
As we get into it, because I know you got people, but like, what's the system? How big? How much you're producing a year? We kind of got into it, but give us the foundation.
Brew about 85 batches a year, about 400 barrels of beer. It's somewhere between a 10 hectoliter and a 7-barrel system, depending upon how you math. The right side is the mash tun. It's essentially a gigantic colander. So we put the fancy malted grass seed in. We extract the simple sugar, transfer it over to the boil kettle, where we call it sweet wort, until John dumps in the hops, and then we call it bitter wort. Goes through the heat exchanger and heads downstairs into the basement where we ferment it. We have 6 fermenters in the basement and 8 brights, which gives us a lot of flexibility. A a packaging brewery might have 6 fermenters and 1 bright tank. Because their goal is that they're going to take the beer out of the fermenter, they're going to filter it, they're going to put it in the bright, and they're going to drop it into bottles. And they're just going to turn that bright every day, every other day. Here, we get to age the beers on wood, or with fruit, or coffee, or cinnamon, or wild yeast, or we can find the beers, we can carb them, or bottle condition them, or do whatever we'd like to do. It gives us a lot of flexibility. Yeah.
Do they have specific names? I see one is wearing a hat. Is that Ganda?
The air conditioners downstairs are named.
Okay.
The refrigerators for the fermenters are named. The tanks are not.
The tanks are not. All right, just tank 1 and tank 2. Tank water, tank mash.
Yeah.
FE1, FE2, FE3.
Okay.
No, great, you've given me something to work on this
You're
year.
welcome.
Great. We're good at naming things.
We are.
Nate would disagree.
What are you currently brewing?
We're brewing a little oatmeal-ish stout today.
Yeah.
Now
It's
you
got
have to
oats in it.
Now you have to introduce yourself.
I'm John. I'm Josh's help here at Long Table.
He sells himself short. We are making a stout today to back up our porter that's currently on.
Always got to have a dark
Um,
beer on.
And then we'll see if we get another stout or porter in between now and the fall. And then I think come the fall, we'll do another imperial stout that will age in barrels. About 12 weeks on that.
Okay.
So
What do you have in the tanks downstairs then?
all sorts of fun stuff.
Okay.
We've
We'll go check them out. But
yeah.
It's a little cramped.
Oh man, oh no, come downstairs. I
Yeah, let's
Yeah. I know that one of the questions you asked was what makes working in old buildings really
Yes,
challenging.
yes, thank you.
Yeah, we have 1 drain downstairs,
Ooh.
and it's raised above the floor.
Flooring is so important.
They weren't
No, they weren't
thinking
doing
about
it.
that,
Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about the quirks besides the drain pipe. I mean, obviously it's a little smaller, right?
Oh, it's fine. We do all right. I'm a human Tetris machine,
Excellent.
and have been for a really long time. If you ever need help packing a moving truck, it's kind of an interesting space. So to get the fermenters down here, they actually cut a hole in the ceiling. So when you walk over the steel plate upstairs, look up and you'll see an I-beam.
Yeah.
And we hook a chain hoist up, and the tanks actually, can be raised and lowered through the ceiling. They all had to be modified. The cones are a little wider than normal. They're 50-degree cones instead of 60-degree cones. I have very strong feelings about the shapes of fermenters.
Okay.
I don't like unitanks. The yeast doesn't get quite enough surface area. So I have a really hard time making the English beers that I want to make, and I am struggling still after 5 years of being here to make a Weiss beer that I'm actually proud of. And I know it has something to do with my mash tun and a lot to do with my tank geometry.
Sure.
I tell people all the time that I could take a beer recipe and give it to you, and you could take it to your brewery and brew it, and it would taste different. Probably not significantly different, but definitely different. And a lot of it just has to do with like house flavor and process and the length of your hose and the amount of oxygen you get and the way your boil kettle works and the shape of your fermenters. And so
I think that's an underrated conversation, by the way, your utensils for the recipe.
they matter. They matter. And that's not to say, I think some brewers are really into their tools and their toys. And some brewers are so committed to the art, they're like, I could make beer with anything. And I'm more on the arty side, like toys are cool, some of them are really nice to have, but you can make really terrible beer with the best brewing equipment in the world. This is our super cool cellar. It's not wide enough, it's noisy, there's fans, there's orange juice. No, it is, honestly, if the cellar was 8 inches wider, I'd never complain about it. It's 8 inches too narrow. I've hit my back on it just as many times as I've hit my back in every other cellar I've ever worked in. It's a lot. I have these scars right around my waistline that are never going to go away. But no, honestly, like I said, having the flexibility of all the bright tanks makes the beer so much better. It just gives us lots of options.
And what do you got going on in there?
Well, I have this cool beer board. It tells us most of the information. So right now, we got a Maibach, a hazy, our Helles Lager, our Thinking of You Bier de Garde, the New Zealand Pale Ale you had. 2 beers that aren't on tap yet are Oatmeal, which is a red German lager from the Rhineland, and a very traditional, mostly traditional Saison. I have a hard time with that style. And then our Parkillionaire, the sour hazy.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
chatting
Absolutely.
With us.
Of
Thank
course.
you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Such
coming.
a pleasure.
Yeah.
Sorry. Please, if you're in the North Parkville area of Denver, get over to Long Table Brewhouse for some amazing beers. Check them out. It's totally worth it for whatever your palate is craving. They've got on tap. It's really good. They love to chat about it, and we'll sit down and do it. So get over there at Long Table Brewhouse on Instagram. Check them out. And then some. I'll have the rest in the comments. Thank you guys.